and welcome to another episode of the Why Behind the Why podcast. I am Terrell James,
And I'm Dr. Nicole Thomas.
and today we're going to be talking about operating from a place of fear. So last week, when we were talking about, I can't even remember the topic last week. That tells you I do too many podcasts. But anyway, so
Light versus dark. Light versus
light
dark.
versus dark. That's right, light versus
Yeah.
dark. But during that podcast, you said something about the opposite of love being fear.
hmm
And I think that for most people, if you ask them what the opposite of love is, they would say hate,
Yeah.
which is, an understandable answer. But metaphysically, we understand that the opposite of love is fear. So that's where I want to start right there.
Okay.
So what makes the opposite of love fear?
Usually, and you made a good point because most people would think that it's hate, but where does hate come from? Most of the time, why do we hate something? Why do we dislike it? If you really think about it, when you dislike something, it is usually or you feel like very, very strongly about it. Usually if you get down to the root of it, there is some fear-based thoughts that are running the program, that's running that thought pattern, right?
Mhm.
There is fear about something. There's something that you consider to be bad, quote unquote, um, running the show of why you hate it.
Mhm. Yeah, so it's fear based though. Basically, it's like saying that hate is the opposite of love is really looking at it on the surface level. But when we go beneath that surface, when we start to uncover those layers, then we get to the root of the hate, which
Absolutely.
is which is fear. Um, and it makes complete sense. I know of plenty of instances where somebody has even even so we have hating somebody and then we have hating on somebody, right?
Right.
But I believe both of those are rooted in fear. Even hating on somebody, I know that there have been instances where there have been somebody who is there's been someone who is um, you can tell that when certain people walk into the room, they feel a sense of insecurity.
hmm
You
hmm
know, when certain people are in the room with them, it's a reminder of who they are, who they're not, and who they want to be.
hmm
And a lot of that is rooted in fear. It's the fear of rejection, it's the fear of failure, it's the fear of not being seen the way that you want to be seen. So that right there leads to them hating, essentially hating on that person. and
Absolutely.
and trying to destroy that person or discredit that person. uh and it's all coming from the fact that they fear that they aren't good enough and that that person is too good.
That point, that part. Also, coming from the other side of it, right? From the other side of it, a lot of times what we don't understand or the judgment of something. So with I mean, we've kind of been taught that one size fit all thing. A person should act like this, a person should be this, they should behave this way, they should look like this. Once you get this age, you should, dress like this, you should look like this. So it's kind of boxed in. We've been taught this one size fit all kind of thing. And that lacks the understanding that we all are individuals. We all are a piece of God and expressions of God. And we all look different, talk different, speak different. It would be a boring world if we all thought the same thing and looked the same way. But
Right.
yet people think that that's what should happen. So a lot of times people will look at somebody else's behavior and judge their behavior. And they might be like, I hate that person, but it's a lack of understanding, not and because of the lack of understanding of or what they think that person should be versus what that person is, then that brings on a lot of hate. which is fear. I mean, even racism, we see that every single day. The lack of understanding, the lack of acceptance,
Hmm.
because a person looks different, because a person acts different, then hate is created. But it's just fear. It's fear of, I don't understand those people. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
I don't understand their ways. I don't understand the differences, or why, if there is any difference, or just fear based taught information.
Hmm.
So a lot of stuff stems from a place of fear, and then it goes to hate, but it was taught to them, and hate because of fear.
Right. Mhm. Is it, do you think that it's also a lack of self-awareness, or and maybe even not a lack of self-awareness, but maybe them intentionally overlooking self-awareness, because having to be self-aware means that you have to be honest about who you are and what you see. So
Ooh,
sometimes it's easier for you to overlook those things and then start to project those onto other people.
oh, that was good. That was just good. That was really good. I don't even understand if you know how good that is. Because honestly, a lot of us don't know who we are.
Hmm.
And if you don't know who you are, if you don't know that you was wonderfully and perfectly made, if you don't know that there was nothing that went wrong with you, and that you were a perfect creation, and that you are smart and beautiful and just as you should be, if you can't embrace the expression of God that you are, and embrace it in a beautiful way, knowing that it is perfect, then it is hard for you to look at somebody else and see that expression of God is just perfect as it is,
Hmm.
you know?
Right.
So that's beautiful that you said that, because a lot of time it is because of um, a lack of self-awareness, a lack of self-esteem, a lack of being able to embrace self fully and wholly, and then have a understanding that this world is created perfect, and that everything in it is perfect, and nothing has gone wrong with any of us. Just because we're different, just because we're in different places, it all makes sense. It's all a part of a perfect plan. We talked a little bit last week about light and dark, knowing that it all has to exist, because without the one there is no other. You know,
Right.
without darkness there is no light, without up there is no down. It has to all exist in order. So if we didn't have differences, then you have no comparison. How do you know what wealth is unless you know what poverty is?
Hmm.
If poverty didn't exist. So I think a lack of understanding, number one, and then definitely a lack of understanding who we are really from the core, like we truly are expressions of God, and the lack of knowing that, understanding that, accepting that, being that is, runs the show.
You know what? You said something that made me think about something that was said on one of the other podcasts that I do, on the Art of Opinion podcast. And um, it's a very slight veer off from what we're talking about, but I want to connect it, even if it's a slight veer off. I still want to connect it to what it is that we're talking about. The question was brought up. Well, actually, the statement was made that what one of my co-hosts said that he does not believe that you can know what hate is. No, he doesn't believe that you can know what love is unless you have experienced hate. Now, the other three of us disagreed, because we're like, well, explain that to a child that has absolutely no idea what hate is, and the only thing that they've been shown is love. So,
Mhm.
how, I understand, like, he's like a firm believer in duality. And yes, duality exists. I get it. But um duality to me simply means that two things exist. It does not mean to me that in order for you to understand one thing, you have to understand the other. And I think that love and hate for me is like the perfect example of that, because I believe that as a child, I received all the love in the world from my parents and from my family far
Mhm.
before, a long time before I even knew what hate was.
Okay.
So, um, but, and in bringing it back to what we're saying, to what we're talking about, fear.
Mhm.
See, we have replaced fear with hate for this particular podcast, for this conversation.
Mhm.
And I'm sorry, we have replaced hate with fear. I think
With
that's
fear.
what, I don't remember how I said it, but you know what I mean. Anyway, um, so if we go back to me being a child,
Mhm.
I did know what fear was, and I knew what love was, but I didn't know what hate was. I knew what it felt like to be scared of something.
Mhm. Mhm.
So when it comes to duality, do you think that love can exist without fear? And do you think that love can exist without hate?
Well, exist, no. Can we know one without knowing the other personally? So it's one thing to know of a thing, and it's another thing to have gone through it, right?
Right.
So if you can know of something and have watched it, you know what. uh, so think about it, and we talked a little bit about this when kids usually get punished, right? Parents will say, I'm doing this because I love you. I'm punishing you because I love you. But are they punishing them because they love them, or are they punishing them because they have fear that if they don't get the message, that something will happen to the child, right?
Mhm.
So I think that you can know of a thing. I can watch somebody go through a situation and know what hate looks like from watching them, right?
Mhm.
That doesn't mean I have to go through it in order to know it. I do think that both has to exist, because if there was no hate in the world or fear in the world, then what how do you measure love? How do you know what it is?
Right. Mhm.
Right? So you have to have one in order to know the other, for the other to exist, right? So I think both does have to exist. Now, do we have to go through hate to know what love is? No, because we can see it, right? We can learn of it. Wisdom is, I think, part of being wise is to be able to not go through it, see it, and say that's not something I want to experience. Now sometimes we have to go through it and experience it, right? A lot of times that's how we learn, to go through a situation, experience it, and then we'll know it. But do I think that they have to both exist? Absolutely. Do I think that you have to go through hating something to know what love is? No. I think that we can see that and know what it looks like and say I don't want to participate, or I do want to participate.
And do you feel the same way about fear? Do we have to experience fear to know what love is?
Again, I don't think we have to experience it, because I think a lot of times that just kind of comes with the territory of us being human, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
So I think sometimes we fear what we don't understand until we understand it.
Right.
I think that's a human thing. So think about it. I anybody who knows me knows I am terrified of bugs.
Mhm.
I
I
am
know.
terrified. Okay. Bugs, snakes, I am terrified of them. I don't want to be. I have no desire because I so appreciate nature. It's the
Right.
craziest thing.
Hmm.
I stand in so much of appreciation for nature. I think it's a beautiful thing. I think that everything has its part and place. I
Hmm.
just don't want to participate in it. I am scared of, there is fear, but that
Hmm.
fear came from somewhere, right?
Right.
That was taught or shown in some way, shape, or form, because there's some kid out there that's or a dog going around picking it up saying, "Oh, it's just a little."
Hmm. Right.
You know what I mean? So
Hmm.
I think a lot of times fear-based things are taught.
Yeah.
It's learned behavior. Um,
Hmm.
if you're not taught it, if you're not shown, because not sometimes it's not taught by mouth. It's not saying somebody said it. My mother is terrified of bugs. Also, she never taught us to hate bugs. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? But she was scared and jumped around and acted crazy every time she saw one. So, as in return, what did we do? Me and my sister, we're the same way, right?
Hmm.
So, if I had a lack of understanding of they do have a part in this place, and it's much respect to everything that's created. Um, if I didn't have that respect before I had it, I would tell you I hate bugs. I hate bugs strongly, right? It was strong, but that's coming from a place of fear.
Right. Right. So so fear is taught, um and also just developed. I think that it's just a natural, it's something that's natural. Nobody taught you to jump when you hear a loud noise. It's just something that it just happens. So it's something that is developed as well as something that is taught. But something being developed and something being taught, and then something that is being accepted, I think that these are all different things. So
Mhm.
when I mean by something that is being accepted, I'm talking about you having a conscious, you consciously thinking of the fears. Now the reason I want to go to your thinking is because we know that our thoughts are magnets. So what we think we attract.
Mhm.
So when we're operating from a place of fear and our thoughts are operating from a place of fear, we are attracting fear, right?
Oh.
So now I want to switch gears and I want to talk about relationships. So oftentimes you see somebody and you are physically attracted to them. But the question now becomes, what all are you attracting?
Mhm.
Because see, there may be something that's much bigger than that physical attraction. That's just on the surface. But the two of you may be drawn to each other because of something much deeper, and in some instances, something darker.
Mhm.
You may be attracting, your fear may be attracting their fear, or just that energy. So it's not like it's the exact same fear, it's just the energy of
There you
fear
go.
that you may be attracting. So, um, how can people become more aware of their thoughts, which will in turn make them more aware of what fears they may be attracting when it comes to somebody that they are looking to be romantically involved with?
Well, I think mind work is, I tell anybody, mind work is the most important work you'll ever do in your life, because I'm going to echo what you said. What you believe to be, the Bible says, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he.
Mhm.
What you sow is what you reap, and all of this is spiritual law. So whatever you put out, you're going to get back. Whatever you put out, you're gonna get back. So there's a lot of behaviors that come from fear, right? Insecurity is a big one. But we can just stay there for a minute. Insecurity comes from fear, right? Fear if they like me, fear if they love me, fear if am I enough, fear of it's so much we can dig into that. Um, so I think. really being honest with yourself is number one, and we talk about that all the time. Really being honest with your thought. As a man thinketh in his heart is the scripture. Why did the scripture say in his heart? Because those are true, those are pure. So a lot of times we want to deal with surface because we don't, we don't want to look at our crap. You know what I mean? Because
Right.
they taught us that, certain things are bad and certain things are good. And if you told yourself the truth, if you have that belief, then you're forced to think that you're bad. But that's not true, because that'll keep you stuck. It's going in and looking at the true thoughts, the true um, beliefs, because the only way to change them is to be able to know them, right? And to be
Mhm.
honest with them and bring them to the surface and examine them to see if you like them or you don't. So I think for anybody, if you're attracting something that you don't want to attract, then you have to look at that and say, okay, how does that thing make me feel? What is that thing bringing me? What is it? What is my real feelings about it? Because your real true feelings about it is what you are actually sowing to get that reflection.